No. Turn it off.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We would like to start the next meeting of the Town of Hempstead Redistricting Committee. As was noticed, this is a public hearing, but there will be no public comment at this hearing.
Why not?
For those of you who, this will be a discussion between the board members, and they will either make or not make certain recommendations to the town board. At the town board, there will be a public hearing or two that hasn't been determined yet, or 3 or 4, and you will all be allowed to speak then. Okay, so at this time, I'd like everybody to stand so we can recite the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to call the roll. Chairman Hughes?
Here.
Ms. Bransley? Here. Mr. DiAgostino? Okay, at this time it's open to the commission, and I believe because Ms. Bransley has a little bit of a presentation with regard to what's up on the video board, she's going to go first.
Good afternoon, community. When I was asked to sit on the commission, I was very limited at what I really knew about redistricting. So I needed to take the maps and put the data in them. So these are the worksheets that I've been using to try to figure this entire thing out. So this first map that's up, this is the Skyline Consulting. So you'll see the company's logo on the map. This is Skyline's map, and this is the data that they gave us. So, for instance, District 1 is 10%, the proposed, 10% white, 40% Hispanic, 44% black, 3% Asian. And for each district, from the information that they sent us, I was able to pull that and put it next to the map. That helped me tremendously. So I'm just sharing with you what I've been looking at, okay? The next map, this is the actual districts as they're drawn currently. And this is the data that I was able to retrieve from what they sent currently, okay? The next one is the Bluebird plan. The Bluebird plan was the maps that were submitted by Mimi Pierre Johnson. And so I was able to take her maps, and again, I was able to manipulate and get the information. So from their plan, they were able to pull 3 minority-majority districts from what the town of Hempstead currently has. And like I said, this is the Bluebird. They came up with 3 different scenarios, okay? So with the Bluebird plan, and you see the data, District 1 has, I'm sorry, my eyes are, District 1 is 3,915, which is 28.8%. Hispanic, 27,983, which is 21.2%. Black, 42,290, which is 32%. Asian, Native American, and Pacific Islanders. So I was able to retrieve more information from theirs, because they included the Native American as well as the Pacific South Asian community. The next map that the Cultural Center submitted is the Osprey plan, and that's the data that I used. And the final one was Chickadee. So those were the 3 maps that we could consider from the Cultural Center. And finally, the Legal Defense Fund submitted 2 maps. And I did the same thing with those maps. So I think that we have other things that we can consider based on, the next one is alternative 2, based on the information that the community, the work that the community has put in. We have some other considerations. Each one has some challenges. None of them seem to address Baldwin's issue, which was loud and clear. They want to be kept whole, but they are split in almost every map. Hempstead, Uniondale, separating the people from the real estate, I think is an issue. And they're not addressed in all the maps. So we have some Hempstead as well. Hempstead is not whole either. And so those are the challenges that I believe as a commission that we have to deal with. So I wanted you to know what I was looking at and the way I was looking at it and why I was looking at it. I think that it's very helpful that there are community organizations that really did a lot of work to come up with these maps, as well as Skyline, who was commissioned to do it for the town. And that's pretty much it for me.
Can we go one more time through the proposed maps that was raised, these put up there? This is the current town of Hempstead map. This is the Bluebird map it's part of the record and it was submitted to the commission. This is the Osprey map. This is the Chickadee plan. And LDF alternative number 1. LDF alternative number 2. Thank you. Ms. Bersey, any other comments you want to make or at this point?
Not at this time.
Okay. Chairman?
Yes, so my question would be this. As we are going to make a recommendation to the town board, of all of these maps, is there one that you say this encapsulates everything that we have been listening to at these hearings where you say, I would like to recommend this map because it covers most or as much of, or would you want to say that I'd like to see a combination of this map and that, some sort of a melding of a couple of the maps so that we can include that in recommendations?
I think we would have to meld the maps. Like I said, all of them, the closest one to my liking was the Bluebird. But then there was still some issues with separating some of the communities. So I think that we still have to look at everything and take different ideas from each map.
So would it be fair to say that you like the Bluebird with with tweaking?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Hempstead, would you like to make some comments that we could include in our recommendations?
Well, if I could just ask a question first, in terms of the additional maps, do we have any paper copies that we can? It's a little difficult, and I listened to the presentation that was just made. But in terms of melding them, are there any paper copies that we have for distribution that I can look at?
I have my book that I wrote.
Oh, okay. I don't want you to take the book apart. Because Well, first of all, perhaps at some point, if we can get copies of those. But first thing that I'd like to say is we've been up here and we've listened, and I want to stress that we have listened, and I want to thank the members of the public who have appeared and made comments to us, and my feeling is that, and I know that we're dealing with many variables here, but in terms of the splitting of communities, I listened to what was said by the public in that regard, and in terms of my personal feelings, there were references made, for example, to North Valley Stream. The North Valley Stream should not be split and should be whole. That North Valley Stream and Elmont should be brought into a single district. There were comments as to that. There were comments raising problems and issues relating to splitting Baldwin. There were comments that were raised as to splitting what I refer to, and I've always referred to as the Merricks, plural, Merrick and North Merrick. In fact, in terms of the Merricks, I know there's a sign as you're coming into Merrick, and it's welcoming people to the Merricks, plural. Similarly with East Meadow, in terms of splitting East Meadow, and these are things that I found problematic as well. The splitting of Franklin Square, West Hempstead being divided across three districts, I know there are many issues that we're looking at, but in terms of the communities which have developed in Nassau County since it was formed back in 1899, there are distinct communities which were being divided, and frankly, my feeling was that we should consider a recommendation to the town board that efforts be made to keep those communities together and not divide those communities. I know that we're dealing with populations, voting populations, and as I said, there were many variables. But what I've heard a lot of things, but there were strong feelings about not dividing communities. And I think that's something we should take into consideration in our recommendations to the town board for its consideration. I don't know if at what point the chair might be entertaining a motion in that regard, but I would be willing to encompass those recommendations in a motion if one of the board members might favor seconding it or continuing to do, well, for purposes of discussion, I guess it would have to be seconded.
Well, I also want to thank those that are here and those that were here at previous hearings. We really sat, each one of us, and it truly was a hearing. We listened. I have a saying that I say to people that God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth so that you can listen twice as much as you talk. And I happen to be a firm believer in that that's very, very important. And I can tell you that I've got probably 20 or 25 pages of handwritten notes from those hearings, to the point where, Mr. Town Attorney, can I apply for carpal tunnel after writing all of these?
We need a document.
All right. We all have a lot of notes. We all listened quite intently, and I happen to agree. I think in both cases, there's a common thread that we're seeing, and that is the idea of keeping communities whole, making them more compact. I can tell you that before my retirement and as a town councilman, it was difficult when the communities were split, because often you would run into somebody and you'd say, they'd ask you for help, and in my case, for example, in Merrick, it was, did you live north or south of Camp Avenue? If I said it once, I said it 1,000 times. So I think the idea that there seems to be a common thread here, would we agree that the idea being that communities be kept whole, communities be kept compact, and I think that while I don't want to speak for my two co-members of this commission, that's the impression that I'm getting.
Yes.
So, if that's the case, and since we're in full agreement on that type of recommendation, I think that after we have reviewed this map, and we have listened to these 4 public hearings and listened very clearly, and the opinion of the public was overwhelming, including the written comments that were also sent into the town. I would propose that we make a recommendation to the town board that they consider our common thread thoughts, and that is the idea of combining, trying not to split communities, and keep them as compact as possible. And if we agree on that, then I would look for a second on that motion.
I second.
You all in favor? Okay, that is going to be our recommendation to the town board. I again thank all of you for coming to this workshop, and I thank you for all attending all of our hearings so that we could get input from the community. Thank you again.
Why aren't you making a recommendation to the board? Why aren't you having a workshop today? This is not a workshop.
And I appreciate you coming. I wish you all a very happy and a healthy 2023.
Why haven't you made a recommendation? Why aren't you making a specific recommendation to the town board? You did not have a workshop today.
That's it? Meeting adjourned?
They're going to approve Skyline. That's it.
Did they adjourn it? I didn't hear it.
Chairman, go ahead. I have one question.
You provided me with a proposal that you voted on, that they consider certain things. Would you like to for me to make it part of the record?
Absolutely.
Okay. So,
Absolutely, and we also have the additional note, which I'll give you afterwards, the notes that I made, that were made regarding Bluebird and tweaking and so forth.
okay, and I already gave a copy of that to Mr. D'Agostino and Ms. Tracy, but I just thought that I would read to you what his proposal was, so you know. They are not making a recommendation to approve the Skyline map. Rather, they have taken in the public's input at 4 hearings, the information provided by Skyline, and a proposal was voted on today that the chairman proposed that said the Skyline proposal is problematic in that it splits Hempstead and Uniondale. And there's a common theme in every one of the next things that I say, which members of the community should be together. The next thing is, in our chairman's proposal is that the Skyline proposal is problematic in that it splits North Valley Stream. The Skyline proposal is problematic in that it fails to keep the communities of North Valley Stream and Elmont together. The Skyline proposal is problematic in that it splits Baldwin. The Skyline proposal is problematic in that it fails to put the communities of Merrick and North Merrick in a single district. The Skyline proposal is problematic because it splits East Meadow. It's problematic because it splits Franklin Square. It's problematic because it splits West Hempstead. And the Skyline proposal is problematic in that it is not sufficiently compact, and compactness is an important redistricting criteria under the home rule message. So, and as I said, after each paragraph, there was the same common thread, which members of the community testified should be together. So, this board at this time has not approved the Skyline proposal, and has in fact issued a message to the town board that they should consider all of the testimony, all of the evidence that was presented, and that they have these issues with the Skyline proposal. So, would I be safe to say that's the reason you haven't voted to approve the Skyline map?
Yes.
You did not look at the changing demographics and making those decisions at all.
Oh, no, it's absolutely incorrect, and we're going to end the meeting. I said the evidence presented to the board. And as you sat here today, you have seen by Ms. Braisley, those demographics, they're up there. Just like Mr. Brewington's letter, which eloquently describes his opinions on those changing demographics. So yes, all of the evidence that was presented is part of the record and is going to be sent to the town board. Thank you all.
Why aren't you making a recommendation, a specific recommendation? That's the purpose of this commission, is to make a specific recommendation. You haven't accomplished anything.
You omitted one of the communities.
Can you repeat the motion, please?
Not the priority.
What was the motion? What specifically was the motion?
Please
Please repeat just the motion.
In the first one, it was thing.
Union and Hempstead
be together.
What was the specific motion that was approved?
Commercial property. Was a separate comment.
What was the specific motion that was approved? Thank you very much. The meeting is over.
Are you going to make a recommendation to not pay Skyline? Why don't you make a recommendation to not pay Skyline? Of course you're not going to be happy with their maps. They were hired by the town of Hempstead. Why are they getting paid? Why don't you pay the public that made good recommendations
Can you
to the
please
map?
repeat the motion that was just said? What was the motion? What was the motion? The record speaks for itself. The meeting is over. Thank you all very much for coming.
You have a motion to adjourn.
What was the motion?
I didn't hear that. There's no motion to adjourn. I didn't hear that. I'll look at the video. I don't think they have a motion to adjourn.
Why aren't you making a specific recommendation on a map to the board?
This is bullshit. This is
Why aren't you making a recommendation